Hello there, my name is Max, the Brilliant Buccaneer, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Now, I was encouraged to do this video by the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover, launching maybe later this month, maybe early August. Now, I'll talk a little more about the Perseverance rover later, but for the moment, let's just get straight into the game, shall we? Right, so you can see here in the tracking station all the different communication satellites, which I've cheated into orbit, but you know, it's fine, to allow us to communicate with the rover once it's at Duna. And so next I'm going to talk about building the rover over in the vehicle assembly building. Right, so here we are in the vehicle assembly building. The first thing to do is to choose the probe body to allow us to control the rover while it's on Duna, because obviously it's uncrewed, so I'm building the body out of these frames, and so these will just form the main kind of backbone of the whole thing, and also some of the like struts and things going out. I had some problems with these wheels. I didn't know how to mirror them on either side so they go properly. You see it's all going really weird here. So I don't know if that's because of the orientation of the probe head thing, but if anyone knows how to do it, please let me know, because I eventually gave up and just attached all the wheels manually. So yeah, I'm still trying to do that, no idea what was going on there. But I eventually settled on these long frames and just push them through the body and put wheels on each side of them manually. I've again tried to mirror and it didn't work, so I decided on 6 wheels because that's what the real ones tend to have, as Perseverance has 6 wheels and so do a few of the others. And so yeah, as you'll see later, this was a very good choice on my part. We wouldn't have done it with 4 wheels. But anyway, I put batteries and solar panels on. I wasn't so sure the small solar panels would be able to continuously supply enough power to the rover, so I put some of these fold-out ones on it, which can be used while stationary, or if we're very brave, whilst moving. And this is the scanning on the scientific instrument to scan rocks and that sort of thing. So yeah, I did some like last-minute tweaking, and yeah, just to make sure everything goes right, and to make sure the wheels steer in the right directions and that sort of thing. And next thing, we are ready to bring it out and start testing driving out and about on Kerbal a little bit. So here we are, out and about, driving around on Kerbal. Just testing that everything works as I expected, and it seems fine for getting about. Seems like it should be okay for traversing on Duna. I got all the steering sorted, only the front 2 wheels for steering. It didn't work so well with all 6 wheels steering or anything else. So yeah, I mean, it's mostly flat terrain here, but it's, you know, it's a fine test. This kind of gives you an idea into the sort of thing I do to test these things before launching them. There is one more test coming up as well. So this, yeah, in a minute we're going to fast forward today and test the solar panels, see how that all gets along. So you can see here, obviously it's night, there's no power coming in other than the batteries. So we are draining power. So about now, I'm going to make things stop and fast forward to daytime, so we can see the solar panels working. And here we are in the day, and yeah, so power's coming in, although perhaps not as quickly as we would like. That's what these fold-out ones are for. They have a lot more area, and they can be used for that. I wouldn't use these when driving about unless it was desperate, because I think they'd break. But yeah, they articulate, they turn towards the sun, it's all very nice, and everything seems to work perfectly well. So the next test I think we need to do is to build a test rocket, or maybe just like the upper stages of a rocket. Launch it into a kind of arc on Kerbal, and see how that fares with all the landing systems I'm going to have to build. Right, so here we are back in the vehicle assembly building. I started out with testing different fairing sizes. I wanted it fairly low profile, so I was trying to find the smallest fairing I could use. I think it ended up being 2.5 meters in the end. And then putting like reaction wheels and probe bodies, or a probe body underneath it, so it would be in a sensor line. I don't know if that would have an effect, but I decided it was, you know, better to be safe than sorry. As well as I wanted things like air brakes on there, which I'll put on in a minute, and a big-ish engine for the final descent. But the idea of the air brakes was to be able to use the Duna atmosphere to slow us down, as well as some solar panels for power and some parachutes, just to make sure we definitely slow down. And so this is the kind of main stage with a big engine and some solid rocket boosters to get us up into a kind of parabolic trajectory, not into orbit, but now we're going to see how this fares, and hopefully it'll all work. So here we are, liftoff. And yes, like I said, we're just going to a parabolic trajectory on Kerbal. We don't want to get into orbit. We're going up facing, well, kind of north, I guess, and we're going to do some stage separations to make sure we get high up enough to actually, have to go through the entire atmosphere. And so now I'm just going to face retrograde, burn the engines a bit, put the air brakes on, and when everything cools down a bit, so the rover isn't damaged, deploy the fairing, and just gently coast down to hopefully a soft landing. So the air brake's doing a very good job here. Might do a little bit of a burn. Don't need the parachutes quite yet, but just in a second. Deploy the first drogue chutes and then the rest of the parachutes. So yeah, there are the parachutes on board the rocket, which I didn't do quite right. A little unbalanced. I didn't set the correct heights, but I'm just fixing that now. And then there are more chutes on the rover, so you can see the drogue chutes deployed, and I'm just going to separate the rocket body, and now the rover can drift beautifully and softly down, and here we go, a nice little touchdown. And everything's fine to drive around, and I think it'll be fine for the Duna atmosphere, which is a lot thinner than Kerbin's, obviously, but I think it should be alright, just to drive around a bit. Everything's working perfectly on the rover, and so next I'm going to build the rest of the rocket. Okay, so the first thing to do is to get rid of these stages and put some nuclear engines on. I wanted nuclear engines because they're very efficient. They're not very powerful, but they are very efficient and very good for interplanetary travel. So I put 5 on, so we actually have, some thrust. They don't provide much thrust at all by themselves. Yeah, putting those on and putting the main engines on down below. Put some SRBs on the side so we can get off the ground quickly. And I eventually decided to split the first stage into 2 stages, and so that way we can drop dead weight, so empty fuel tanks. And yeah, so I decided on 4 solid rocket boosters for the moment, and 4 fins to guide us through the atmosphere. All the little nose cones, so we're all nice and aerodynamic. Struts, can't have too many struts. It's the first rule of Kerbal Space Program is more struts. If you think you have enough, you don't, double them. So here are the launch clamps, and about now I'm going to separate the first stage into 2, yep, and put a mainsail engine on here, I think. I got more struts on the old nuclear engines. Here's the mainsail engine going in. Yep, trying to decide between a couple. Went with the mainsail in the end. Decoupler, and yep. And in the end, always check your staging. In fact, that's the first rule of Kerbal Space Program. So now we're ready to launch. And up we go. So the SRBs are burning nicely, and I'll talk you through some of the staging as we get higher up. So here we are. We are now about to lose the boosters. There we go. Nothing exploded, so that's good. About to go to the next stage. Yep, so this is our second stage about to activate. Here we go. And we're just going to coast to the point where we want to circularize. So just wait a little bit till we get a little bit higher out of the atmosphere. There we go, and set our maneuver node to circularize. There we go, roughly circular, all very nice. Here comes the music, lovely. And burn for the circularization. Got the solar panels out, so we're getting some power. And there we are. We are now in a nice little circular orbit. Not too shoddy, if I do say so myself. Lose that, and now we have the nuclear engines active, and we are ready to make the interplanetary burn to head for Duna. Okay, so here I'm just extending the burn out to about 1200 meters per second at delta V, and then playing around with it, moving it around Kerbin a bit, giving it a bit of give or take. I watched a tutorial which said to have Duna about 45 degrees ahead of Kerbin. Just move it out till we intercept. And so at the moment just waiting for the burn, and so I'll time warp a little bit through this and wait for the burn to happen, which should happen any second now. And here we go. Yep, so the burn's going, looking good. Skip a bit of this because, you know, it's a nuclear burn, it takes quite a long time. Just about to finish, we're throttling down, and everything's seems to have gone well, and we'll see from the map in a minute. And yep, it looks good. There might be a bit of tweaking to do on the orbit or en route, just to make sure we intercept. But yeah, it all seems to be going perfectly well now. We're just making sure we intercept perfectly, and we can adjust it when we get there as well. As long as we intercept, we can do fine adjustments when we get there. So just very quickly, I thought I'd talk about the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover. So this is a rover due to launch on the 30th of July on board an Atlas V 541 rocket that describes a number of things, including the number of boosters on the rocket. You'll notice in Atlas V, the boosters are never symmetrical. There's always unbalanced thrust, so it kind of power slides off the launch pad, which is pretty fun. I liked it when I found out about that. Maybe I'll do a video on that in the future. But back to Percy, as he's nicknamed. The journey will take about 7 months to get to Mars, and we're operating for about 1 Martian year, at least, which is 687 Earth days, roughly. So he'll be looking for signs of life on Mars, having existed millions of years ago, also collecting rocks which could be brought back to Earth as part of a future mission to Mars, possibly by astronauts. And so the rover I built here isn't nearly as capable as Percy, but it's also bringing a Mars helicopter, which kind of does what it says on the tin. It's called Ingenuity. And yeah, we'll fly about and be used to test out powered flight on Mars, which will be very interesting. I look forward to seeing how all this pans out. Right, so now getting back to the game, I'm just expending the last of the fuel in the nuclear engines, but I have enough in the final stage to do any last minute adjustments I need to do. So yeah, we'll spend a little bit, and now we've intercepted Duna with a very high periapsis, but that's fine. We're going to circularize here. Perhaps I could have brought the periapsis down beforehand, but I thought we'd circularize here and we can bring it down after. It won't take that much fuel. So we're just, I'm just doing the maneuver node to circularize. So here we go, and yep, overcooked it a little bit, but it's fine. We'll just adjust it a little bit more, and it'll bring us into a nice, very large circle around Duna. So eventually we want to be orbiting at just above 50 kilometers, which is where the atmosphere starts. So you'll see in a minute I will start burning to bring us. So here we go, so now we're burning, and this is going to circularize us. There we go. Nice. Yep, and now we're bringing the periapsis down to, like I said, just above 50 kilometers. And bringing that down, and now we'll circularize once more. So we're not in such an eccentric orbit. So we're in polar orbit, which is fine, I guess. For some satellites, you want to make sure in equatorial. You want a very specific orbit, so you can do some fine adjustments there. But I wasn't too fussed; it wasn't worth expending the fuel. So yeah, roughly circular once again, and we'll be ready to bring us into a landing orbit, hopefully very soon. Right, so here we go. We're bringing the periapsis even further down, so we'll start to be in a landing orbit. Yep, just adjusting the orbit ever so slightly here. And so I've deployed the fairing, and I'm going to bring in the solar panels so they don't tear off or explode or anything. I've deployed the air brakes. We're just coasting down now. I'll burn a little bit to slow us down some more. And in just a moment I'll deploy the first set of parachutes. So yeah, the air brake's doing a really good job here. A little bit of a burn before we bring in the parachutes. And here we go. Yep, so there are the first parachutes. I've made sure to have more balance properly this time, and so these will go to slow us down quite a bit more. And we're just coasting down, deploying the drone chutes on the rover. And now the final parachutes before nice and slowly through Duna's very thin atmosphere at the moment. We're quite low down. I'm just about to drop the rocket stage, a little bit of burn there, and drop it. I probably should have cut the parachutes and turned off the brakes so we didn't risk crashing into it, but it's fine. Cruising down gently. About to touch down. Hopefully gently. Oh dear, there's a little bit of an explosion. Let's inspect the damage. I've lost a wheel and a solar panel. Not the end of the world. I said earlier, good thing I had 6 wheels, and yeah, we can get by with this. It's fine. So yeah, we can test this about. We can drive about a little bit, and so this will be fine, I think. So yeah, off we go to drive out a bit. I came across this asteroid up here, which I thought we'd use the scanner on. Good opportunity to test that, and so it took a bit of jiggery-pokery to get it working, because it's on a slope and the rover kept moving, which shut down the scanner every time. But eventually I managed to get us into a position, and it does its little, it does its thing. Scans the asteroid and tells us a bit about it, which you'll be able to read on screen, hopefully. Yep, here you go. It takes a while, this. See, you can see why every time we moved it shut down. Yeah, so there's the information we've got. That's all lovely, some nice science if we were in a science or career mode. And we can drive away and go back to the landing site, test out the solar panels, apart from one that broke. Yeah, we can leave it here and come back to it anytime we want, because we have our network of satellites, so we've got control 24/7, or I guess it's more like 6/7, because that's what Kerbal is, but anyway, deploying the solar panels, and we're getting all the nice sunlight, there we go, and the batteries will recharge. And so we can leave this here forever, basically. These things don't wear out, there's not such a mechanic. And we're back here at Kerbal. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this slightly different video format with me narrating after the fact and cutting it up a lot more. I'm very excited for the launch later this month, or possibly beginning of August. Hopefully that one doesn't lose a wheel on landing. But please do all the YouTube things down below. Like it if you liked it, comment if you want to give me a suggestion or talk about Percy, and subscribe if you want more content like this. So once more, thank you so very much for watching. Goodbye.